All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Torah Studies. All right, so tonight we are looking at the construction of the Mishkan, and that's really the second half. It's kind of interesting, themes in the Torah. So like the book of Genesis, we got all the beginning stories. We got Adam and Eve, we got Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You got all the original stories, kind of the founding of humanity and the founding of our people. Then you have the book of Exodus that kind of takes place in two halves. The first half of the book of Exodus, slavery and freedom and Torah. That's how I would kind of combine the first. It's really, a little bit more than half. So you have the story of Egyptian slavery, then you have the 10 plagues, then you have the Exodus, the splitting of the sea, the giving of the Torah, and that covers that part of it. Second half of the book of Exodus describes the commandment to build, and then the execution of the building of the Mishkan, the first holy temple, sanctuary, tabernacle, whatever you want to call it, home for God. And this will take us to the end of the book of Exodus, and it'll take us into Leviticus, which speaks about, well, now that you have this place, so what do you do there? Sacrifices, offerings, karbonos, etc. And then you have the book of Numbers that speaks about the Jews traveling with said tabernacle throughout the 40 years of wandering. And then, of course, the book of Deuteronomy is telling the tale of the last little bit of Moses' life and the transition into the next leader that will lead them into the promised land. All right, but all of this to say that from this point on, we have now Terumah, Tetzaveh, Kisisa, Vayakov, Pekudei, 5 Torah portions left of the book of Exodus. Terumah and Tetzaveh, this week and next week, we'll explore the commandment. There's God's instruction about how to build it. Kisisa or Kitisa in 2 weeks' time, the third of these three Torah, a third of the series of Torah portions. We'll talk a little bit about the Mishkan, a little bit of the tabernacle, as well as the sin of the golden calf. In the last 2 portions, we'll talk about how the Jews actually built the Mishkan. Okay, so in the preamble, in the introduction, God instructs the Jewish people, first things first, what are the items, what are the ingredients, as it were, what are the materials that are needed to build this Mishkan? It's kind of like a recipe. By the way, have you ever had this? Who looks up recipes online? You guys look up recipes online? I look occasionally. Me too, also.
I read cookbooks.
You read cookbooks? No, but this is specifically websites. You'll see what I mean? If you've ever done this, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so you Google a recipe. Now, I always put in the word best, even though my wife always makes fun of me, like best, like the worst. Like the best wings. Give me like the best wings recipe, or like give me the bad, like cook life down, pretty much. But like, what else do I put in like the best? The best, I don't know, whatever it is. Cholent, exactly. No, but it's okay. So then you put, right there. You got it.
I just
so
had the best
I'll put it in, and
from
and the next thing I gotta make my volume loud. I could not hear, but the next thing you get to a blog, like a food blog with the recipe, and you get a whole story.
Yeah.
I was in Spain when I first encountered these tomatoes. Oh my gosh, did they blow me out? And I'm like, scroll, ads popping up. What is happening? Jump, but then like on my phone, I have a good ad blocker on certain things, but when I search, somehow it pops up without ad blockers, and I'm like, what is happening? It's a circus. It's Vegas. I don't know what's happening anymore. Things are popping up. Things are happening, and I'm getting a whole story here. Give me what am I doing? What are the ingredients? What's the method? So a good recipe, first of all, will tell you about Spain. I'm kidding. A good recipe will first of all tell you what ingredients you need. Okay, here's what you need. Okay. And then it will tell you what to do with the ingredients. Blend this, mix that, layer the other. I'm out. I don't know any more terms. I'm out of verbs. I'm out of cooking verbs. Whatever. So like put them all together, and what do you got? Dibbity-bobbity-boo, whatever the thing is. Okay, so the first thing when we encounter the Mishnah, the first thing is, here are the ingredients. Here's what you need. And what are the ingredients? I'm so glad you asked. David, please get us started with, hold on, what is all of this? Let me close some stuff here just so that our PDF is nice and clean. Okay, Terumah, this week's Torah portion is Terumah, commandments regarding building the Mishkan, and action. Please take away text 1a.
God spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and have them take for me an offering from every person whose heart inspires him to generosity. You shall take my offering. You will collect the following offering from them: gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and crimson wool, linen, and goat hair, and ram's skins dyed red, tachash skins, and acacia wood."
All right, perfect. Pause here for a moment. Let's just go over what we said. So God is telling Moses to tell the people that this is what is needed. These are the ingredients. And you know what? I just realized. God did the same thing in the Torah. Oh, when I started the world creation, unbelievable. He did the whole blog thing. He gave us the whole story, a whole background story. Oh my gosh, a book and a half before the ingredients of God's home. But here we go. All joking aside, here we go. So God says, tell to Moses, right? Because Moses, the point guy. But God says to Moses, tell the people the following. This is what we need to build a home for me. And what are the items? Gold, silver, copper. Those would be the metals. The textiles would include blue, purple, and crimson wool, linen and goat hair, and ram skin dyed red, tachash skins. We'll stop there. That refers to the textiles. Yeah. Is that the right term? Textiles? Am I saying the right thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fabric, textiles, materials, shmatas, as they would say. The shmat industry. And then you have acacia wood, and that is the wood for, let's just discuss what all this is going to, so let's discuss the purpose of all this. So gold, what do you guys know about gold? What was gold used for? Give me a few options. No. Sorry. In the Mishkan, what did they use gold for? Yes, jewelry. But what did they use gold for in the Mishkan? Menorah. What else was made of gold? Menorah was made of pure gold. Washing basin was copper. Oh, well, that answers the copper question. What else is gold? The breastplate was made of gold. Good. What else? What else is made of gold? The ark. The Aron ark. The ark was actually layered. Gold, wood, gold. Yeah, it was layered inside and outside with gold and wood on the inside. Outside, inside. Gold was also, I think, the showbread table was made of gold. And the inner altar. There were two altars. The outer altar, upon which the sacrifices were brought, the animal sacrifice, the inner altar where the incense was burned. So the inner altar, there's two altars. Inner altar, smaller one, was made of gold. Mizbach Hazav, the golden altar. All right, so that's gold. Hold on. We're gonna get there. Where's the gold from? Where did they get the gold from?
Your earrings.
No, well, hold on. We're gonna get there. Now, silver. What was silver used for? This is not so well known, by the way.
The bells? Weren't the bells silver?
Bells were so maybe. What else was silver? What did you have?
The rings to hang like the clocks up.
To hang what?
Hang like the curtains.
So possibly. The silver was definitely also used for the sockets. Let me explain. Well, I mean, it's jumping ahead to the wood, but the walls of the tabernacle were made of wood panels. That way they could be easily disassembled. If you build it out of stone, that's going to be way more difficult to knock down and rebuild every time. So it was made of like wood planks. The wood planks, though, like you stand up a wood plank that's like 10 feet, 15 feet tall, it's going to fall down. So it has to like sit in something. So they had sockets made out of silver. So the boards had, anyway, there were heavy sockets made out of silver, so that's what the silver was used for. Copper, we explained, was the wash basin, and I'm sure there were other things that I can't think of right now. All right, let's move on to verse 4. Blue, purple, and crimson wool, linen, and goat hair. So these were, what were these used for? The various fabrics?
Yeah. And that's
Curtains.
Curtains and coverings, right? The roof, there was some certain parts of the tabernacle that had a roof. But it didn't have a solid roof. It had I don't know, like a wool or maybe skin roof. The wool also was used for dividing curtains, etc., between different spaces, the holy of holies, right? Don't go past the curtain if you're not approved to go there. Ram skins dyed red, verse 5. Tachash skins, tachash. Do you know what the tachash was?
It says dolphin skins are dugong.
So interesting. Honestly, tachash, according to tradition, the tachash is this mysterious animal that only existed then. And it was an animal that, according to some, had one horn. Listen to this. Had one horn. What does it sound like?
Unicorn.
Unicorn, literally, right? And was like multicolored. Can you imagine a rainbow unicorn? Oh my God. Seriously. And I just picture it just walking around the midbar of the desert, just with sparkles coming out of it. I picture like a combo of My Little Pony and Friends. Who remembers My Little Pony? Don't ask me how. But anyway, like this is what's going on here. And it was just epic. Tachash is literally an animal that only existed then for the purpose of the Mishkan, and that's that. Okay, so they use these skins again for the coverings, for the roofs, whatever it was, and then you have acacia wood, and that was, as I said, the wood was the wood for the walls. Okay, so now
question.
Yeah.
Is tachash a kosher animal?
Tachash, I guess back then it was kosher. It's an animal that kind of only existed then, so. It's a little bit strange, but it's it seems like it would have been a kosher animal because I think only kosher animals were involved in the creation of the Mishkan.
It's kind of funny that part of the ingredient is this unique animal skin, right?
Yeah.
But the Parshat is about the acacia wood, right? Oh, forget the the mythical animal.
Yeah, we're gonna gloss over that rainbow unicorn, the tachash. We could do a class on the tachash, and maybe we will next year. But for right now, we're gonna focus. Today is gonna be on the acacia wood. So let's take a look at text 1b. Here, Rashi jumps in, and Rashi asked the question, a similar question. Along the same lines of what Toba asked before, which is where they get all this stuff from. Rashi asked specifically about the wood in this Rashi in verse number 5. David, take it away, please.
Acacia wood. Where did they get these trees in the desert? Rabbi Tanchuma explained that our father Jacob foresaw prophetically that the Jews would build a tabernacle in the desert, so he brought trees to Egypt and planted them. He instructed his children to take them along when they would leave Egypt.
So thank you. So Rashi gives us the story. Well, he asked the question, where do they get the acacia wood? Where's that coming from? So Rashi explains, okay, there's a whole story. There's a whole backstory. Hold on. When Jacob first went down to Egypt, remember that? When Jacob went down to Egypt, when Joseph was there and he came down with his whole family? So Jacob had a prophecy. He knew that they would be enslaved there. And then he knew that they would go out. And then he knew that eventually they would need to build a Mishkan. And he knew that for the Mishkan, the tabernacle, they would need wood. So what did he do? This guy was prepared. You think your Swiss Army knife means that you're ready because it has one of those little scissor things? I love those scissors. And the toothpick that you would never use because it was way too thick for teeth.
Yeah.
Right? I digress. So you think you're prepared. Jacob, oh my gosh, hundreds of years before they would be needed, this guy is transporting trees down to Egypt, replanting them, and then telling his kids, take them along when you would leave Egypt because you're going to need it.
So if these trees are fully grown now that they're in Egypt and they've been planted for hundreds of years, how do they just take the trees with them?
They just took the trees and leave.
And walk through the split sea with them.
I would imagine. What they say, beam me up, Scotty. I'm kidding. So it's a good question. How do they actually beam? Yeah.
Lumberjack.
Yeah. Let me log on and find out. Sorry. All right, I'm done. But the trees would present a logistical challenge. First of all, in transporting them down to Egypt, because it implies that Jacob took actual trees, not that he took seeds, or not that he took pieces of. He took actual trees.
Could have taken seedlings.
Maybe seedlings or saplings, right? Planted them there, and then they took them out. You imagine a few hundred years later, they would be pretty tall. Which is your question: what's going on? I imagine they either took the thing, or maybe they cut it up and took the lumber that they knew that they would need, etc. So now that's Rashi, and honestly, I think it's a cool Rashi. It's a great backstory. It provides. I don't know. It's almost heartwarming. I find it heartwarming.
This isn't part of the Talmud, is it?
It's so Rabbi Tanchuma. There's actually a medrash, Rabbi Tanchuma. This is a midrashic thing, which is our first question.
Oh,
And what's our first question? What does Rashi typically do? Rashi, what type of commentary does Rashi give us? Pshat. What's pshat? Straightforward. Comes along that when it comes to the wood, and he takes us on a ride. Not that I don't mean ride like a fraud ride, but he's like taking us on a journey into like Jacob's trees. Like, whoa, slow down. What's going on here? Why are we getting so elaborate? It's actually a little bit hard to figure out. Rashi says, almost like with a straight face, like, oh, we're gonna study Rabbi Tanchuma. Rabbi Tanchuma? You mean the Medrash Tanchuma? You're not Medrash. When are you Drush? Right? There's Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod. There's Pshat, which is Rashi's lane. Remez, which is like, I don't know, numerology. Drush, which is Medrash. And then you have Sod, which is Kabbalah. But like, why is Rashi drushing on us?
He's done it
If I-
before.
He's done it before. But the only time he'll do it is if the only way to explain Pshat is with a drash, is with the medrash. That's the only time. So our question is going to be, and you'll see how the question comes in soon. Why does Rashi need to jump to this story of Jacob and the trees that he brought to Egypt when there's a few very straightforward ways of explaining it without that story of Jacob? Not that that didn't happen, not that I don't love it. It's an epic story, but it seems out of character for Rashi to go there. But I haven't substantiated the question yet. I'm just kind of outlining the question. But I also want to ask another question, and I feel like I need to pull this up again for myself and for everybody online to see. Yeah, here we go. Look at, it's better in the Hebrew. Text 1b, we just did it. But if you look at the third paragraph, after he asked the question, like, where's the wood from? He says, Pirish Rabbi Tanchuma. Rabbi Tanchuma explained. Rabbi Tanchuma explained? When you say the word Pirish, it almost means like you have a question as to the meaning of a thing, and you have an interpretation. A medrash is not like a Pirish. It only really works in the Hebrew. That's why I said I have to read in the Hebrew. A medrash is kind of like I don't know what the right word is, homily, or it's like a story, or it's some sort of like not allegorical, but it's like it's this other type of learning or expository experience, and you wouldn't call it Pirush Rabbi Tanchuma. Pirush Rabbi Tanchuma means like he explained that this is what the words mean. I don't know if he explained these words. I think Tanchuma and the Midrash Tanchuma, it kind of gives like the story, but I don't know if that's a Pirush. It's weird that Rashi is trying to like almost, I'm gonna use the word pretend, but not in a harsh way, but like Rashi is almost trying to like say that, that this Midrash is actually Pshat. It's like, since when? Since when is Midrash Pshat? This is a Midrashic story. Not that it's not true, but why are you trying to say Pirush? And Rashi sometimes brings the Midrash, but he'll say, Umidrasha, and the Midrash says, or he'll quote something and say at the end, Tanchuma, like it comes from Tanchuma. Why does he say Pirush Rabbi Tanchuma? Rabbi Tanchuma explains. Weird. Also, another question is sometimes when Rashi quotes the Medrash, he just says, the Medrash says the following, he doesn't quote the name. Why here does he quote the name Rabbi Tanchuma? So we have three questions. The first that I recognize I haven't yet substantiated. We'll do that soon. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. But then the other two are more technical in nature. So let's start actually from the last question that I posed. So thus far, we'll go in backwards order. Question number one in backwards order is, why does Rashi quote Rabbi Tanchuma? So the obvious answer is because that's what he said. But then I'll answer that Rashi doesn't typically quote the people who said it. He just gives his commentary. So why is Rashi saying, oh, by the way, this is Rabbi Tanchuma? Second of all, why does Rashi say Pirush Rabbi Tanchuma? Rabbi Tanchuma wasn't giving a Pirush. Pirush means an explanation. He wasn't giving an explanation on this verse. That's what Rashi does. He was giving a drush, a medrash. So why is Rashi calling it a Pirush? And the third question is, why is Rashi jumping to this midrashic explanation in the first place when there are some very simple explanations that he could have used? Now, I know everyone's waiting with bated breath. What are these simple explanations? I'm going to tell it to you outside, then we'll read it inside. Explanation number one. You ready? To Rashi's question. Where did they get the wood from? You ready? Here we go. There was a forest nearby that they collected wood from. Done. Now, what's your question on that?
Why did you just say that?
Well, no. That's my question. But like, what's your question on this one? Where's the forest? What kind of forest? You can't make up a mythical forest. First of all, just it. No, I'm kidding. First of all, so where's there a forest?
It's where the unicorns.
It's where the unicorns hang out before they're tachash. Look,
made a forest for them to come get it.
Exactly. We find that the Torah tells us in their travels, they came across a place. Well, we're going to read it inside in a second. They came across a place that had palm trees. Great. Now I get it. It wasn't acacia trees or wood, whatever, but could have also been. And oftentimes when they were traveling, they weren't like in the dead center of a desert. They might have been along the side, a few days journey. There might have been a forest right there, or there would possibly have been a forest. And we even have a proof that there would have been a forest because I don't want to get too far off track here, but there's an incident in the Torah told about the Makoshesh Eitzim. I don't know if this sounds familiar to anybody, but a guy who, after the sin of the spies in the book of Numbers, was gathering wood on Shabbat.
Mhm.
And what do we do with this guy? And I'll put him to death. And it says that he did it. He took one for the team. He was really a God-fearing fellow. He felt that everyone else was thinking that once they had the decree of wandering for 40 years, that probably God doesn't care what God has said, you're abandon them. He wanted to prove that they still matter, and he did it in a negative way, right? Still matter what we do. If we mess up, it's still a problem. So he gathered wood. But those details aside about the details of the motivation of the story, what did he do? He gathered wood. From where? Boom! From a forest. That was my John Madden. I tried to John Madden that one, right? Turduckle, almost like a tachash. We have tachash, turduckle, and we have forest. So that's one explanation. That's one explanation. One explanation is the metaphor.
Didn't the Tachash have to live someplace? Where did they live? I mean,
I don't know.
In the forest.
Well, again, that would be speculation, but that fact that
And
they
also, were there not other groups of peoples that
Yes.
they traded with?
That's the second, yes. The second alternative shot that Rashi could have easily said is where they get the wood from? Merchants. See, it's funny because until I learned a little Gemara, I actually, as a kid learning Chumash, I actually never realized this. But when you study, when you get a bit of a kind of a more of a panorama of what was going on, then you realize the Jewish people weren't isolated.
Yeah.
They were constantly in touch with merchants. Right? They were constantly, that's where they got the cool, that's where they got Slurpees from and all that stuff. They always that's very hot. You got to have Slurpees. What else is going to happen? Yeah. So but they were always in contact. So again, Rashi asked the question rhetorically, and where did they get the wood from? And he takes us on this whole journey back in time to Jacob's trees. Slow down, time out. Two easy answers. Number one, they got it from a local forest. Only you can prevent forest fires, right? So they got it from a local forest, number one. Or number two, they bought it, right? They bought it from a traveling merchant.
I heard Home Depot had a
had a warehouse nearby. Yeah, you know what? A lot of Jews, they could probably use some lumber. All right, so good. So those are two. Now, the truth is, these are not just random suggestions. These are brought down in commentaries that Rashi would have seen. And again, all of this is building up to a question, which is, why did Rashi forsake very straightforward answers and go with a very, I don't know, it's not that complicated, but go with a more elaborate answer when Rashi always tries to get us in and out in the simplest, clearest fashion. So let's take a look. Dasi, please read text number 2, where we have the Ibn Ezra kind of sharing some of these difficulties with Rashi, or really some alternative explanations.
Some of our predecessors explained that our patriarch Jacob planted them, and the Israelites brought them out of Egypt at Moses' instruction. Now we don't know if this was transmitted to our predecessors by their ancestors. We too should accept it. However, it is best to seek a different explanation if this was merely their theory. We suggest that there was an acacia grove near the Sinai desert. When they arrived at Sinai, Moses informed them that they would pause there for a long time. At that point, they cut down the trees to provide enough wood for everyone to build a hut and for the leaders to build large courtyards. Moses instructed them to build the tabernacle after Yom Kippur, several months after they built their huts. By then, they had plenty of available wood.
Take a look at that. There was an acacia grove near the Sinai desert. Done. You know the famous joke about this guy who's looking for work? And so they ask him, so what's your past experience? He's like, I'm a lumberjack. Like, where did you work? I said, I worked in the Sahara forest. They're like, you mean the Sahara Desert? So yeah, after I was done with it. So we could say maybe the same thing with the Sinai Desert. Today it's a Sinai Desert. Back then there was a Sinai forest. Done. Eben Ezra. There you go. All right. Now let's look at the next one.
But how does that account for Jacob bringing the trees and getting them there?
So again, there are multiple. It's possible to have multiple traditions. That doesn't mean that anyone is right or wrong. There are multiple options that the commentaries cite. Eben Ezra cites initially in text 2 over there the tradition about Jacob. He says, I have a more straightforward approach. There was a forest nearby. Our question is now in Rashi. If the commentators are discussing the options, why does Rashi go elaborate when he could have gone simple? Now let's take a look. Let's continue with some other options that Rashi could have said. And here and this is, okay, Toba, please read this. This is supportive of the notion that you do have these other encounters with trees. Toba, take away 3a.
And they arrived in Elim, and there were 12 springs of water and 70 date palms.
Look at that. They did encounter trees. Now, was it a mirage? No. It sounds legit. It sounds like there were 70 date palms right there. Continue. Oh, and one more, text 3b. This is the alternative. Dr. Maxey, I think you mentioned it. Take a look at 3b.
There were items that merchants from the community of nations would sell to them.
Can you imagine the opportunity? Unbelievable. Jews love tchotchkes. Are you kidding me? I think everybody loves tchotchkes. I don't think it's exclusively Jewish. You have a few million people there with, I would say, very disposable. Is that the right word? Disposable income? Is that the right word? By the way, you asked initially, where did they get the gold from? Here's the answer. Remember by the ninth plague, by the plague of darkness? One of the reasons for that was that the Jews could scope out what was going on, in the Egyptian homes. And then when they left, they borrowed, i.e. they took the jewelry, gold, silver, precious, all this stuff. And then by the sea, right?
Enough to build the altars is all that.
Absolutely. Oh, way more enough to build a golden calf and an altar. Are you kidding me? This was enough to both to serve God and to violate service of God. This was for this side and that side. So the guy who says, last week I bought a humidifier. This week I bought a dehumidifier. I'm going to let them fight it out. Right. So they built the golden calf. They built an altar for God. They were all over the place. Yeah, they had so much gold. Oh, you kidding me? It's by the sea. It was washing up on shore. Vayasa Moshe. So Moshe had to say, enough, genug shein. Let's start moving from this place. Herding cats. Is that the expression? Like herding cats? Can you imagine? But anyway, sometimes on occasion, maybe like once or twice a year, I'll take my kids to a Hawks game, like a basketball game. It's also by the baseball game, but like specifically by the Hawks game, I've noticed this where like you walk out after the game and these guys, they're selling these cool things that light up. I don't know what they are. They're like light up, the spinning things. And the kids are like, can we get one? And I'm always like, no. Let's go to the car. Let's go home. But inside, I'm like, absolutely. That's my inside voice. My inner voice is like, yes, let's push me a little bit harder. I will capitulate. Oh, my kids are not watching this. But like on the outside, I'm like, absolutely not. That's crazy. $25 for something that we'll only use once. Just push me to do this. But like, you don't think that there were merchants? If you know, right, with these things. But if you don't think there were merchants that were like, oh, first of all, like, what did the Jews need the money for? Are you kidding me? They had clouds of glory protecting them. They had a cloud cover by day, fire by night for warmth and cool, for cool and heat. The clothes were laundered. There was no dry cleaning bills. Like, it was great. Everything was in the cloud. Right. So like, what did they need already? Everything was taken care of. They had. Okay. So our question, if we had to consolidate our question, this is not going to be original. And others, you've heard this already multiple times already tonight. Rashi, the question on Rashi is, Rashi gives us this whole story about the wood coming from the trees that Jacob brought to Egypt, and not saying that didn't happen. Sure, it might have happened, but if Rashi is pshat, if Rashi's lane is pshat, why not say there was wood nearby, or they bought it? This doesn't even seem to be a question. What's the problem? Why is Rashi going with the medrash about the whole backstory? Okay. So to understand this, the only way we can answer this, only way, the construct is, and this is just the way your brain has to think when you're boxed into the corner with this. The only solution is to say that Rashi understood that the story with Yaakov and the trees, Jacob and the trees, is the only way you can explain it in Pshat. There's some other issue with the Pshat, with the simple meaning of the verse, that you have to go to the Jacob streets. Now the question is, so what's the issue? There's another problem with the verses that you might have noticed. I actually mentioned it Monday at the class. I gave a different interpretation. 3 times in the first few verses, the Torah used the same phraseology. God says to Moses, tell the people, right? We need stuff to build a Mishkan. We need the ingredients, we need the materials. He doesn't say to tell the people to give. He tells the people to take. Now, let's see this inside. Let's go back. Let's go back to text. What is it? 1? Is it 1a? What is it? 1? No. But back to 1a. Back to 1a. Okay, look at verse 2. Speak to the children of Israel and have them take for me. Like, take for me? Let's give to me. Take for me? What's take for me? At the end of verse 2, you shall take my offering. Oh, that sounds like the collector should take it, okay? You will collect the following. I don't like that. Tichu. No, you know what? Verse 3 glossed over the tichu. This is the offering. I should tichu make them that you shall take from them. So 3 times, it's only twice in the English, but it is what it is. Translations. 3 times the Torah says the word yikach, tikach, tichu, take. So the question is, and the commentary is asked, and a number of answers given, but the question that's asked is, why take and not give? The people, this is Moses telling the people, and the instruction would have been, we need these items. Can you give it? What do you mean, take? So the commentators explain, and this is how Rashi understands it, that take means something. Take means that it's ready to go, and all you have to do is take it. As opposed to give, and in English, honestly, the semantics don't work in English, but in Hebrew, it works a little bit better. When you say take in Hebrew, which is like ach, it means take from that which is already ready to go. It's like, take water from the table. If you say give, I may need to sell some shares. I may need to procure the item. I may need to it may be a process before I'm able to give it. So give might imply a process. Take is ready to go. So that's one piece of information. So now let's process that for a second. So God says to Moses, all these items that I'm about to list, they should be taken by the people as a to give. Take it. So meaning it's ready to go. So now, was the gold ready to go? Did they have gold?
Yeah.
Yes, they had tons of gold. Did they have silver? Tons of silver. Did they have copper? Tons of copper. Precious metals they had. How did they have it? Again, we just went through that. They took it from Egypt. They took it from the sea. They had plenty of stuff. They took it, right? Because they had it ready. What about what else was in text 1a? What about the wool?
Tapestries.
The wool. Did they have the wool ready to go? I'm going to say yes. Why yes? Because as the Torah has already told us, when they left Egypt, they also went with an immense amount of animals. If you recall in the story of the Exodus, it talks about animals. In fact, there's even a dialogue between Pharaoh and Moses, where Pharaoh says to Moses, I'll let you go, but who are you taking? And Moses says, Benarenu, Biskanenu, Bivkarenu, right? He says, we're going to go with our young and our old and our animals. He says, with all the animals. They had animals, presumably some sheep, little shepselach, right? So they had sheep, right? And sheep produces wool, I believe.
But not ready to use, it still has to
So
be
you would
spun and-
imagine, good. You would imagine though, so first of all, they had the sheep. Second of all, you would imagine that since they were probably making clothes, because I cannot be caught at the Monoball wearing the same outfit that I wore at the well of water ball, if that were a thing. So The Cohen's bar mitzvah, I can't wear the same thing. So like, right. So presumably they had the supply and they were always making new things. And so therefore they would have had presumably ready to go wool. What about the skins, the animal skins? Maybe they didn't have skin. You could also say maybe people rode Harleys back then. They had leather jackets. They had some and hey, who doesn't like a multicolored, situation? Tachash leather jacket. All the rage of the 80s are back. Boom. All right, so that's that.
But if the Tachash was like a special, unique animal that only showed up then,
Right.
it wouldn't have necessarily been ready.
Right. So would it have been ready? Good. It's a valid question, but at least it seems like it was on hand and on some level on hand. But now Rashi gets to the wood. And Rashi has a few options. Right now, there's a few options on the table. There might have been a forest nearby. There might have been merchants that would sell them wood. He's like, but that's not take. Take implies that you have it ready to go. Money you have ready to go. Materials you're ready to go. Tachash skin somehow. Okay, we have to figure out that one. But like pretty much ready to go. Wood, the fact that there's a forest maybe a few days away, that's not kach, that's not take. That's give. It's not take. So Rashi says, and the fact that I can, dial it up on, there's Amazon.com today, but that would have been what?
Home Depot.
Sinai.com. I don't know, whatever the
Sinai Express.
Sinai Express, right? Like the fact that they could have ordered it from a traveling merchant and I know a guy, I come back in a month with it. That's not take. So Rashi says, okay, I got there is one solution that's brought down that would explain how it was ready to go. Okay, and here's the solution. Jacob brought down the trees and he told them, you're going to need these trees. And they took them when they left Egypt and they knew they were going to need them. And guess what? They had them ready to go. When the bat call comes out, right in the sky, a little acacia symbol, we got the trees ready to go. We got the wood. Rashi almost has to use the Midrashic answer to explain how this was also something that was ready to go. Let's read all this inside. I gave you a lot outside. None of this I made up.
Yeah, but they got to mill the wood before they can.
Well, it sounds like, interestingly enough, that since they knew that they were going to need it for boards, they might have already, on some level, at least some of it pre-milled. Yeah.
So if
it's Miller time.
Or right next to a forest, that would not count. Like that wouldn't fulfill it.
That wouldn't be
kach. Process.
That would be too much. Chopping wood, schlepping wood. Yeah.
Skinning the animal.
Not very Jewish.
I know. So that's the tachash. Okay, I'm with you. Tachash is the one that's but this is more or less the way that this works. Now let's, Ramon, please read this one. Let's see which text I want to do. Let's jump to 4a and 4b. This is going to be on the word take. And here we see how Rashi starts to imply that take is something that's ready to go.
Speak to the children of Israel to take for me an offering.
Rashi 4b.
An offering, a separation. They will set it apart from the property as an offering for me.
So not only is take implying that it's ready to go, but even the idea of an offering, Rashi says, means separate it from what you have, meaning from what you already have in your possession, not something you have to go out and procure. Now, this leads us to this understanding or to this conclusion that it must have been wood that they already had ready to go. But now let me ask you another question. So Rashi needs to kind of explain that they had the wood. But why didn't Rashi just say simply that they took the wood out of Egypt? Why does he have to give the whole background story? You with me on the question? If Rashi needs to address how they had the wood ready to go, he should have just said, when they left Egypt, they also took wood. Well, I think there's a few issues with that. Number one, that doesn't make sense. You tell me money, gold, precious metals, I get why they would take that. Animals, yeah, important to have. Wool, sure, clothing. Tachash skins, way too cool to pass up on, right? And that was even later. But like all of these things would make a lot of sense. But why would they take like lumber? What do they? Well, you say, well, maybe they knew that they would have to build a shelter, right? So maybe some shelter stuff. Okay. But maybe it wasn't good enough to take the wood from Egypt. That had to be special wood that initially came from Israel. Why is this so? Let's continue. Centurion, please read text number 6. This is from the older brother of the Maharal of Prague.
Jacob wanted the Acacia trees to come from the Holy Land. He replanted them in Egypt because the trees Jacob brought would not have lasted all those years in Egypt had he not planted them.
So here we have a little bit more information about this background story, that basically Jacob wanted the trees to come from Israel because it should be holy wood. And he knew that if he would take down lumber to Egypt, that lumber would have rotted. So he had to take down the saplings, seedlings, whatever, plant them, they would grow, and then take them out and have them fairly fresh for the building of the Mishkan at that later time. But then that begs another question. I know we're doing a bunch of questions. I hope this is the story is kind of flowing, but well, then why did the wood have to be from the Holy Land, and why not the gold? I mean, the gold came from Egypt and the other things came from Egypt. Why did the tree specific?
Because it's natural, comes from the ground.
Maybe natural comes from the ground. Maybe there's more of an earthly type of nurture. But here we encounter.
Well, trees are porous also.
Interesting. So they're absorbed.
So kind of like kashrus. I mean, it's porous and you take in impurities.
Interesting. Very interesting. I will say I like these answers. And I think they're also along the lines of where we're going with this, because right now we're about to explain the remaining few questions that we had. And it's all going to come together. Remember I asked you why Rashi cites the name of the Rabbi Tanchuma? Like, he doesn't usually do that. And why is it that Rabbi Tanchuma explains this when it's more of a medrash than an explanation? So the word Tanchuma, what Hebrew word or name does that sound familiar? Does that sound similar to?
Tanakh.
Tanakh, Tanchuma, what else? Nachum, Nechama, right? Menachem. What do those words mean?
Compassion.
What else?
Peace or restfulness.
Good. What else? Comfort. Comfort.
Mhm.
I tell a joke about the Jew that's grazed by a bus. He's on the ground. Paramedics come over. Are you comfortable? Are you okay? You're comfortable. I said, I make a good living. Hey, that's a joke. So comfort. What's comfort? What is comfort? Comfort means like it sounds. When you're going through a hard time, you provide a comfort. Turns out, who's the one that gives this whole explanation about the trees of Jacob? Rabbi Tanchuma. Rashi quotes the name Tanchuma because the reason why Rashi quotes this whole thing and doesn't just say, well, they took the trees out of Egypt, is to tell us something more. The reason why Jacob brought the trees there in the first place. And we already know the answer. The reason is so that during the 210 years of harsh slavery, the Jews would be able to look out at the trees, at Jacob's forest, the acacia wood, and remind themselves that they're going to be leaving at some point. It would be a source of comfort, a source of nechama, a source of comfort to know that this is not where the story ends. These trees did not come from here, nor are they destined to remain here. And the same thing is true with us. We didn't come from here, and we're not destined to remain here. We come from the Holy Land, and we're going back to the Holy Land. It wasn't just a pragmatic thing there. You're going to need wood later on. So this was a declaration of hope, a declaration of faith, a declaration of we are not going to have our flame, our fire extinguished by the brutality of galus, by the brutality, by the shibud, by the servitude, by the slavery. We are going to remain strong. The neshama, the soul, the pintaliyid is going to remain, the fire is going to remain strong and vibrant and carry us through. The symbolism of this was those trees. Leaders can come and go, but those trees were there the entire duration of the 210 years. From the moment Jacob came down to the moment they stepped out of Egypt, it was 210 years. For those 210 years, the one constant was obviously God, but the tangible constant was the trees. Comes along Rashi, and Rashi says, here's what happened. God, and so we're putting together a few pieces to the story. Number one, the Torah says, God says, I need this to be in hand. It can't be from a forest. They have to now start cutting down and prepare. It can't be from merchants. They have to put in your order. This has to be ready to go. So it must be that they had wood with them. Where did they get the wood from? Well, they just came from Egypt. But how are they to use Egyptian wood? Doesn't make sense. So Rabbi Tanchuma says, this wasn't just wood. This was a statement of faith. This was a declaration of hope. This was trust, bitachon, trust in God, saying, don't give up. You don't come from here. You're not remaining here. You have a past and you have a future. The present may be difficult, but you come from somewhere and you're going somewhere as well. You come from the Holy Land, you're going back to the Holy Land. Don't get stuck in the present. Don't let the present get you down. Rashi says, this is so important. I'm going to include it in the Pshat. I'm going to include it in the simple interpretation because it explains so much how the trees were on hand, why it had to come from Israel, because it had to be almost in Pshat. There had to be this source of hope. Rashi says, Pirish Rabbi Tanchuma. Rabbi Tanchuma explains. He didn't say it as a commentary on the verse. He told it as a story of our people. But Rashi says this is the explanation. Because the only explanation why the Jewish people are still here is because they never lost their faith. Because had they lost their faith completely, they would have dissolved, they would have assimilated. There wouldn't have been anyone to pull out. They would have been lost to history. Why weren't they lost? Why were they standing there? Why did they have wood ready to go? It's only because our forefather Jacob gifted his children, grandchildren, etc., a gift of a tangible reminder there is hope for a better tomorrow. It's such a beautiful concept. Let's read this inside. Let me find the texts that are pertinent over here. Let's do text 7a. Here is the Rebbe's explanation. Sandrine, you read last, right?
Yeah.
Merle, please read text 7a.
Israel was exiled in Egypt in a state of such terrific distress that the Egyptians cast every newborn son into the river. They drew comfort and consolation from seeing the acacia trees that Jacob had brought and planted in Egypt. This was even more comforting than Hashem's promise, I will bring you up to Israel. I will also bring you up. It was especially comforting to know that Jacob made this incredible effort because he prophesied that his children would build a tabernacle in the desert. He instructed his children, he instructed the following generations to take them along when they left Egypt.
Such an unbelievable, thank you. It's such an unbelievable, tangible thing. You know, it's kind of, for me, it's, I'm thinking along the lines of the Passover Seder. We're trying to tell our kids, communicate the story of our past. And we have matzah there. We don't just tell a story and do a PowerPoint. We're tasting the bread of affliction, right? We're dipping things in salt water. We're eating the maror, the bitter herbs. Like, it's a tangible experience. And it's almost like, it's the ultimate pedagogical experience where it's like a hands-on experiential learning. And it's almost like, this is what Jacob could have told his children, we're not going to be here forever. And they would have told their children, we're not going to be here forever. And they might have told their children, we're not going to be here forever. But after the fourth generation, they might have said, well, the rumor is we're not going to be here forever, but I don't really see how we're getting out of here. But somehow those trees, standing the test of time, they kind of carried the torch. They're not from here either. They're not going to remain here either. There's a destiny, there's a promise here. There's something bigger than us, something that transcends our, particular lifespan, something more grand. That is the message of the trees of Jacob. So powerful, so powerful. Mira, please read text 7b.
Jews would behold with their physical eyes the trees that were transported from beyond Egypt, from Israel, which signifies redemption. This underscored for them that even during their time of bondage, they were not fully under the Egyptian thumb. They were under God's authority, who promised, I will bring you up to Israel, I will also bring you up. They would be liberated from Egypt, ascend to Israel, and bring these trees with them.
How powerful is this? Unbelievable. Thank you for reading that.
So why do none of the pictures you see of the Jews going through the sea not show them with logs on their shoulders?
Or in the movie, right? So clearly, They subscribed to the other
Did
interpretations.
Charlton Heston forget that we needed to?
They didn't subscribe to Rashi. They subscribed to, they got the wood. When they needed it, they contacted the local merchant. But according to Rashi, and we're all on the Rashi train here, right? This is how Rashi explains it. And Rashi says they had to have it ready to go. And part of this ready to go is an opportunity to talk about how it is that we survived. I cannot help, given the incidents of first the last 18 months, but also the last week, I cannot help, but as we read text 7a, right? As you read text 7a, which talks about the decree of throwing the children into the Nile, this infanticide, killing the children, murdering the Jewish boys. I can't help but think about, of course, recent events and how it's so easy to lose faith. So easy to say, is it ever going to get any better? Right? Are we doomed to repeat the cycle? Is it, is there hope for a better time? Maybe this is it. Maybe it's just, sometimes it gets a little bit better, then it gets a little bit worse, it gets a little bit better. It's just cyclical. It's just, history repeats itself, and maybe we're not going anywhere. We have to remember Jacob's trees. Now, wouldn't it be great if we had Jacob's trees? I mean, it would be great, but we have the story of Jacob's trees. We have the promises of Mashiach, of Gula, of redemption. We have tzaddikim in every generation, righteous people in every generation who are like the cedars. Tzaddik, katamar, yifrach, ka'erez, bavanin yiske. Tzaddikim, righteous, who are tall like the trees, right? Likens them to trees. And tzaddikim remind us in every generation, remind us not to give up hope, to believe. Don't become so cynical and so despondent that you totally give up on there ever being a future. The message for all of us is the same message that the Jewish people integrated, internalized back then in the original exile. In our current exile, it's the same message. We don't come from here. We don't belong here. We're not going to stay here. And I don't mean a physical locality. I mean a state of reality. We don't belong in a state of craziness, in an olam hafuch, in an upside down world, in a world where light is dark and dark is light, where truth is false and false is true, in a world of confusion. We don't come from here. It's not only we, no one, right? We don't come from here. We're not meant to stay here. We're meant to have a better reality. There's a certain level. The Rebbe would often say that this time is called not just a time of darkness, but a doubled and redoubled darkness. What does that mean? What does it mean that darkness is double? If dark is dark. Sometime, and the Rebbe once explained what he meant, is that there's one state of darkness where it's dark, but at least you know that it's dark. So you know what light is. You know it's dark, and you know you're in the dark. But then the worst state of darkness is where it's doubled. What does it mean? Where you start to think that the darkness is light, meaning this is the best it's ever going to get. There's nothing to aspire to. It's not going to get any better. That's the worst. The worst is not only are you stuck, if you're stuck, but you know where to go, that's one thing. It's kind of like the notion of, let's say, depression, where it's not just sadness, but it's a sense of despondency and despairing of ever getting out, of like getting stuck. It's not just not being where you need to be. It's a sense of, this is where I am, and this is where I'm never going to get out of here, right? It's not just I'm here, I need to get out. It's I can't get out. I can't get out, or maybe even at some point, maybe there's nothing better. Maybe this is all it's going to be. This is the best it's going to get. Achin vei, as we say in Yiddish, woe to say such a thing. Trees of Jacob, Yaakov's trees, reminded the Jewish people back then, they don't come from there. They don't belong there. They belong somewhere else, right? There's a better destiny, something to strive toward, And the same message is for us as we read the Torah portion this week, as we read Terumah, the fifth verse of the Torah portion, the fifth verse, Atzei Shitim, Acacia wood. Rashi comments, and where do they get the wood from? And Rashi says, Pirish Rabbi Tanchuma. This is going to be not just an explanation, but one that brings us all comfort. The trees symbolized that there's a hope for the future. We have to maintain the hope for the future, for a better future for all of us. Mashiach. We say, 3 times a day, we say the Amidah. And in every Amidah, there are, I think, about 7 or 8 of the 19 blessings. Like more than a third are about Ki lishuasla kivinu kol yom, as samach davar avdach meir satzmiach. We talk about a hope, right? V'liyushalayim mircha barachim tashuv. Let's come back to again and again and again. Yeah, we start off asking for health and wisdom and money and all this. We start off with the basics. But then like halfway through, Mashiach, 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 a better future, a better time, a time of world peace, a time of plenty, a time where we're not fighting with each other. The person says, you really think that's going to happen? Trees of Jacob. Never forget the trees of Jacob. Always remember that there is a better hope, a hope for the future, a better time. And it's not just we believe it's going to happen, but we need to be the ones to make it happen. There are 3 types of people. People who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who ask, what happened? Let's be the people that make things happen. Let's make the magic happen. Never lose hope, never lose faith. Let's make it happen. Make sense? You had a question?
No, I said that's the 13th for faith.
Yes. 12th and 13th. 12th is in Mashiach. 13th is in resurrection of the dead. It's so easy to become cynical. 100%. What, this world is going to get like a perfect world? How? In what planet? In what planet? Mm-hmm. Look, we can take this on multiple levels. You can look at this scientifically and say, well, there's never been a better time in history. There's never been a better time where more people have more food, where when evil happens, it gets called out, pretty much right away. Like never in world history did this happen to this extent, right? Things were way worse in the past. We're way better. That's on one level. But again, from a Jewish perspective, it's just maintaining the belief, maintaining this sense of it's going to get better. We believe it, and we pray for it. We believe it, and we're empowered to make it happen. That's the clincher. Empowered to make it happen. That's it for Terumah. Let's build God's home. That's the plan.
Possible for you talking about Jacob.
Yeah. There's a reason why he's called Yaakov Avinu, Jacob our forefather, right? Cares about his kids. I think it's also, like you think about the son, you evoke that about Jacob, like with their own kids or grandkids or people that we're in touch with, inspiring them through these types of like visual things. I don't know what that would mean exactly as we, I think Passover Seder has that built in. Something very powerful about seeing a tangible reminder about something really beautiful,
But the Passover Seder, we've now made the maror be something we want, and the parsley and the salt water, everyone's ready to eat something.
Everyone's ready to eat it, especially, yeah. And the matzah, yeah.
It seems like those tangible reminders are good up to a point, because then you get to a point when King Josiah got to go and burn the bones and altars and stuff. But it's like humans have this sort of draw to, we need to prove, we need to see it.
We need to see it. Jacob knew. He knew it's going to help. It's going to help to have they could get trees from a forest somewhere at some time, but they may never get there. Because if they gave up 100 years before, who's gonna be the ones to get the wood for the Mishkan? They may not even be a people if they give up. Gotta hold strong. Gotta hold on. That's his message. Hold on, don't let go. It's kind of like, just this visual of like a relay race. Every generation runs a lap, and then, when they're done, they hand it off. And it's like and then they go into the stadium. So imagine a stadium, rows and rows and rows of generations of people that have run this race of life before us. And we're here. We're running the lap right now. This is our turn. They handed us the baton. And they said one thing: don't drop the baton. Finish the race. That's it. How could we drop the baton and say, you know what? I'm tired. I'm out. It's too much riding on this. It's a little Jewish guilt, by the way. Anyway, so that's it. We are carrying the baton. We are making it happen. We don't come from here. We don't, right? We don't come, gullus, exile. It's not our place, not anyone's place. Should never take craziness as reality. Gotta bring the truth, Mashiach. All right. Made sense? Good. Stay tuned. We have so many things coming up. Okay. Things that are not on the website. I have not sent that information yet. So I mentioned this, I think, last week, a book that I help form and shape and write called Letters for Life, I think. Letters for Life. We have the date, I think I mentioned the date incorrectly. Sunday, March 16th, not 23rd. Sunday, March 16th. Save the date. It's like a day or two after Purim. Purim is Friday and then Shabbos. So all of the recovery that needs to happen post Purim L'chaim, that's Saturday and Sunday morning. By Sunday afternoon, evening, you should be ready to go for this special event. So that is Sunday evening, the 16th of March. Set your calendars. Set your calendars. Is that something you said? Whatever, mark your calendars. And then we have also, we're launching a new parenting and grandparenting course coming up next month, also in March. And what else? Something else. We're gonna be doing a Purim boot camp coming up to get ready for the holiday. And all right, stay tuned for more excitement coming up. Good. All right. Questions, comments?
What's happening Sunday night?
Which Sunday?
March the 16th. You said.
Oh,
You
book
didn't say
launch.
what it is.
Yes, that is true. So the book that I helped co-write, so the author is coming down to Atlanta. He'll be presenting, he'll be speaking about the book, signing copies of the book. So it's like a book event. Part of his book tour, he's going around the country. It's part of his book tour and book launch. So exciting. Yes. All right. We'll see you guys. We'll sign off online and then we can choose further. All right, guys. Lila Tov, everyone.